You're listening to the Ontos Podcast, where we explore the nature of stories in the pursuit of being and truth. I'm Vaud.
And I'm Maq.
And our sentience depends on you. Now cue the intro music.
I don't know why Quan betrayed me. Even still, this haunts my thoughts. He was the one who discovered me. He was the Terrace philosopher who first called me the hero of ages. It seems ironically surreal that now, after his long struggle to convince his colleagues, he is the only major Terrace holy man to preach against my reign. All right, big stuff happening in chapter 14.
Before we get into it, do you want to talk a little bit about that epigraph?
Yes. So, against my reign.
Are we seeing the Lord Ruler coming out of these epigraphs now? Because look, before we talked about in the last episode, he mentions basically having to kill his friends, and now he's mentioning that the guy who supposedly discovered him is against his own reign now. And he didn't say he's against me, he's against my reign.
So, this starting to get a little bit of a clearer picture here about how we ended up here. But we're breaking into the Lord Ruler's place in Critic Shaw. So, where Kelsey is trying to get into is this place that the Lord Ruler spends 3 hours every 3 days. And he says he could visit it so regularly, it has to be something important in there.
Yeah, it's where he and Mare got caught.
And that's what he says. It was the place where he got betrayed, where he ultimately ended up getting caught. Breaking into the place, there are haze killers, there are all sorts of guards, and Vin kills someone for the first time ever.
Yeah, that was that was something interesting to see how she reacted to that.
Well, and what was interesting is that she says, I feel like there's something wrong, there's something going on, and Kelsier essentially says that the Lord Ruler radiates emotional allomancy, and says, just turn on your copper and you'll feel fine. And she turns on her copper and she feels better, but she notices there's something still lingering there. So, they get into the Steel Inquisitor, they get into the Critic Shaw, and they find a building inside the building. And when they open the door, there's a frickin' Steel Inquisitor right inside. And he recognizes Kelsier as the survivor.
There's 3 Steel Inquisitors inside.
Well, I was flabbergasted by the first one. So
yeah.
There are Steel Inquisitors inside, and Kelsier says, "Get out of here." The Steel Inquisitor grabs Kelsier by the neck, recognizes him, and they're very interested in whoever Ven's father is, or who spawned her, is their thing.
Yeah, and we see the Inquisitor who's on her trail, because he calls her out specifically. There you are.
And so Kelsier pushes Vin away. Vin tries to get out, but there's no way she's getting away from this guy. Steel Inquisitor chases her, is way stronger than anything that she had to deal with when she's trying to fight.
Yeah, she mentions that, maybe it's because they're better trained, but oh gosh, Kelsier is better trained than she is, and they're like twice as strong as Kelsier in their pushes and pulls.
So she gets into this room, this is like with a big old golden altar and a large book, and she's hiding behind here, trying to stay away from the Steel Inquisitor, and so she decides to burn Atium, and she's able to dodge and get away from the Steel Inquisitor's like needles or whatever, the shards that he's flying.
They're like spiked pyramids that he flung out.
And then he looks at her and he goes, huh, and then goes, ah, and then he becomes a big thing.
He burns Atium.
He's burning Atium too.
Oh god, they have Atium.
So she is totally screwed, and then realizes she hears rain. It's like, I just need to get outside. So,
well, one thing you missed here. The Steel Inquisitor chases her, and she turns this corner trying to get away from her.
Oh, yeah,
And the Steel Inquisitor buries his axe into her side.
An obsidian blade into her side. So she's like, I need to get out of here. I'm bleeding. I got a huge wound. Her pewter's barely keeping her up. So she shoots out, uses the book as a shield, as the leather book, and then gets outside, gets into the steel spires. She's jumping between the spires, pushing between the spires to get away. The Steel Inquisitor's chasing her, and she loses him. Has her copper on. She knows she can't see him. She's trying to bandage her wound, and then boom, she feels something and looks up, and the Steel Inquisitors found her. And she can't figure out like how she could possibly could have found him. And so she thinks that maybe, I can use the metal on the book that's stuck on the book to be able to get away from him, throws the book away and tries to trick him. And it works for a minute, but the Steel Inquisitor ends up getting on top of her, ends up finding her. She's done. She's starting to lose consciousness. And then she hears a sound. She says, like, a bunch of branches.
Snapping of branches, yeah.
A bunch of branches breaking. She feels the warmth of someone picking her up, looks up, sees a friendly face, and passes out.
Yeah, and it's not Kelsier. She knows that. It's not Kelsier. Because
the guy that who caught Kelsier, he was chasing her. And so she's like, Kelsier must be dead. Because, I mean, that's the only way that, this guy would have been free enough to come get me.
Yeah, and that's a really quick wrap up of what happened, but this is one of those chapters, kind of like chapter 5 before, where it's like most of it was fighting scenes, and so I don't necessarily think people wanted us to just
detail the fight scene
in a way worse way than Brandon does.
Yeah, I mean, you could read the fight scenes, but I mean, there are big moments here.
The big thing, Kelsier has already mentioned in the past that Steel Inquisitors break the rules that he understands, and what the heck is going on here? They seem faster and stronger in every single way, shape, or form. They have access to ATM. They found her even though they didn't have direct line of sight of her. What the heck is going on?
So, I mean, we find out that, Steel Inquisitors, they are as formidable as they've been built up during this whole time. Kelsier's, we don't get to see him go toe to toe with anyone. Because he's just trying to get Ven back to safety. But Ven is supposed to be at least somewhat gifted in at least being able to steel push and get away. And she's just they're having none of it.
And another big thing to note here that I think is easy to miss if you're not looking for it, they're playing with her.
Yeah, they're
not trying to kill her.
They say because they want to know who her father is. They want to know how who her parents were.
She stood no chance, and they were playing with her.
Yeah, and even like she got out like 2 tricks basically. She ended up burning ATM, which then they saw through that really quickly, and then she ended up like throwing the book, and that was like it. But the rest of the time, she was on her heels the whole time, and they were just trying to like get a hold of her and they were trying basically not to kill her. Yeah, that's with stabbing her in the side, probably knowing that her pewter would keep her alive.
Here's the thing. I think that wound, because she even mentioned, she goes, this wound's going to kill me.
Yeah.
Like, this wound's going to kill me 100%. And so I think you're right. I think they did that because in their eyes, they just needed her to answer a question, and the pewter's going to keep her alive long enough to answer that question.
Right. And so I mean, huge deal. I mean, what's the kind of like strange things are like, we have this building inside of a building, and there are 3 Inquisitors here, and we already know there's only about like 20 in the whole Empire.
Yeah, they seem like they were waiting.
They're either waiting there, or that's just where they hang out. And if you're gonna stick, almost a quarter of the entirety of your strongest, well, supposedly strongest, individuals in one spot, what the heck is there? And Kelsier seems to think there's something really important, hanging around there.
Yeah, why would he go back to the place he was caught if he didn't think that?
And we already knew that the Lord Ruler was like super powerful and big and all this other stuff, but the fact that you just get close to the building and he radiates emotional allomancy, like, I mean, enough to affect Ven. Even if she seems like it's still lingering, even though I'm burning my copper. Like, this is like, it clearly shows like, he's affecting a huge area. And he does it basically all the time because Kelsier says like, yeah, that's just who he is. So we're moving here. Ven looks like might be saved by someone. Kelsier,
she recognizes the face. They keep it from us. They don't tell us who it is, but she recognizes the face. It's someone she knows. It's a friendly face. And that's something I want to talk about here. what the heck is going on? Because Kelsier said, run. These things are way too strong. We saw them utterly dominate Vin. And then someone's holding on to her. And I don't think that they're just holding on to her because, they got there and the Steel Inquisitor's just watching this happen. What happened to the Steel Inquisitor? And who the heck is this? Hey guys, Vaud here. Thanks for listening to the Ontos podcast. You'll start to see regularly scheduled episodes starting November 14th, 2022. And if you'd really like to follow us, please consider subscribing. We're a very small project, so please support us with likes and comments, because that's what the algorithm craves. If you're listening on the YouTube channel, please hit the notification bell. And if you want to really give us a boost, consider supporting us on Patreon, because I really need a better mic.